Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I created this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career. If you find these stories valuable, I'd love it if you could help by subscribing, liking, and rating the show. It really does mean a lot. Today's episode is for anybody who has been interested in an adult gap year. We've all heard the rites of passage stories with a backpack after school or college, but adult gap years are gaining momentum. I'm joined by Kyle, an experienced leader in customer contact centres who, driving home one day, realised that he just couldn't do what he was doing for the rest of his life. After years of leading high-performing teams in financial services, he has taken a career break to reset and reflect. And very excitingly, he is now the founder of the Frontline Leader, where he's using his expertise to empower frontline managers with the tools and strategies to lead with confidence. I was travelling when we recorded this episode, and so there's a small issue with my audio towards the end of the episode, so I do apologise. Hopefully this doesn't stop you enjoying all of the tips and insights that Kyle shares. Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you. Hi Kyle, and welcome to Sabbatical Stories. It's lovely to have you here.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. And the way that I always ask individuals to start is to introduce yourself. Can you introduce Kyle and your sabbatical story, please?
Absolutely. So my name's Kyle. I've been on a sabbatical or a career break since April last year, so April 2024. It has been a wild ride so far. I've focused very much on traveling around and seeing as much of the world that we can within the budget that we've got. Yeah, it's been an absolute whirlwind. It's gone super quick, but it's been an absolute gem and I've loved every minute of it.
Take us back to prior to April last year. What really prompted the decision to take a career break?
It was a little bit of, I suppose, time in the work. So I think I got home from work one day in October before the April, and I just said to my partner, I'm like, let's just sell everything and go on an adventure. It was very much an off-the-cuff kind of like, let's just go and do it. And that kind of started the wheels in motions to go, great, what do we have to do? What kind of steps do we need to take? Do we actually want to do this? And what is it going to mean for us? But it was just a time in my life that I was at work and going through the motions and driving up to my office every single day and going, is this forever? Is this just what's going to happen? And I got home and just said to my partner, let's just do it. And we called the real estate agent the next day and got our house on the market. And that started everything in motion to just get us to the point where we are today. But it was very much I don't think I can keep doing this every single day. I need a break. I just need to stop for a minute and just breathe.
And was there like a tipping point? I had Santosh on earlier in the season and he talked about the book called The Tipping Point, and that there is a tipping point on making a decision. Was there something major in a tipping point, or was it just this thought of I can't keep doing this?
Yeah, look, there was a tipping point. It was very much an inward journey around what's important to me as a person in a workplace. I didn't feel that I was being true to myself where I was. It wasn't right for me any longer, and I just wanted to go, I need to change it up completely.
I totally relate. And it's that whole point around it's not right for us now, which it might have been previously. You know, it was funny. Recently, one of my friends tagged a photo of me dressed up as Miss Piggy, emceeing the corporate quiz night. And it's probably from, 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And it really made me think, my God, you know, if I was there now, it just would not be right for me. But back then, I loved it. And, you know, somebody said on the photo, you know, oh, you loved that. And it was, you know, you were brilliant at it. And I thought, yeah, I did. It was right for then. But we all change and things shift. So October to April, what sort of things did you do? Obviously, sell the house, which is pretty radical. But what did you do to really plan for the break and make it happen?
Yeah, so obviously the house went on the market and it was all about, right, that's got to happen and that's got to be sort of the the main thing that needs to occur before we can even go and do this. Because we had savings, obviously we had cash, but that's the reserve. That's not to be touched. And we didn't want to burn through our buffer money. But sell the house, then we needed to think about, great, where are we going to put our stuff? Where are we going to put everything? So organising storage, and how much does that cost? And do we want a home base back in Australia? And absolutely we did. So my partner's parents so nicely put up a bedroom for us. So we've got our bed and our clothes and, a TV and all that kind of stored back in Melbourne at the moment. We had to figure out, what does that mean from a taxation perspective, from an earnings perspective. We had to think about, what does it mean from an actual travel perspective? What countries can we go to? Where do we want to go to? Where don't we want to go to? Do we want to look at making money on the road, or do we want to just stop and decompress? And there's been so many lessons over that period since we've been traveling to now that we've learned. But it was really hard to try and stay motivated at work when you knew what was coming.
I bet.
It was really, really tough. And there was some really big things occurring in the business at that point that I wanted to give my all to. And it was that kind of thought every single day to be like, all right, you're still here. The house may not sell. We may not do this. So show up 100% every day and do what you need to do. But it was tough.
When did you finish work?
So I finished work in April.
Oh, wow. So you had October till April, really having to motivate yourself and show up 100%, knowing that this was going to happen. When did you tell work? What was the journey around having those discussions with work? Yeah.
So I didn't tell work until the house actually settled, until everything was done and dusted and we knew this was what was going to happen. I didn't have a conversation until that point. I've kind of tousled over that in my head, whether it was right or not. It was really, really difficult because I was in a senior role, obviously, and I was leading a large part of the business. But for myself, I felt like if I said anything earlier, it may have put me in a bad light. So I made that decision to wait until the house settled and then had that conversation at that point.
Yeah, I think it's important to do what's right for yourself. And also, it sounds as though the selling of the house was the make or break of it happening. So actually, until that point, it wasn't reality.
Correct.
Was there a decision-making process around selling the house or renting the house out? How did that sort of come about? And it's pretty radical to sell up and leave with nothing. So talk us through that decision-making process.
So the house was rented out. We rented it out for a couple of years because we relocated from Melbourne, and that's where the house is, to the Central Coast of New South Wales for the job that I took, which was, to your point, right at the time. So it was rented out. And I discovered, whilst it was being rented out, that I'm not a landlord. I hate that. I hated being a landlord. Anytime there was a slight, issue with the payment coming through, the rent was a little bit late, or if there was something that needed to be repaired, I didn't have the brain capacity at that point in my life, in the job that I was doing, to deal with it. It was just one extra little thing that just kind of went, I can't be bothered. I can't deal with this. And the thought of being overseas and having it rented out and someone in there, I just didn't want that I suppose, weight in my brain. Part of the reason why, and I'll go back a little bit around why it wasn't right for me at that point, was I wasn't in a great space mentally. I was dealing with anxiety. I was dealing with my own self-doubt and my own thoughts around, I physically can't. And any little bit of extra thing that's kind of piled on my shoulders just put me into, a bit of a spiral, if I'm honest.
So actually just being able to feel lighter with, I suppose, less baggage, as it were, to leave and go and explore made complete sense.
Exactly.
And we talk a lot about the why around career breaks. And you've mentioned around the tipping point and, thinking, oh gosh, I don't know whether I can do this forever. What was the fundamental why around taking the career break, and how have you gone about solving for that?
Yeah, we get one shot at this, right? So we get one shot at life. We get an opportunity, to do everything that we want to do with whatever time frame we have. It may be 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 90 years. We don't know, right? I didn't want to sit back when I was retired at the point and go, I wish I had done that, or I regret not doing that. I don't know. It's so funny. I saw this thing on Instagram and it was a little calendar. And it was like, here's how many years you get. It was like 74 years, right? It was like 74 little boxes. And then it ticked off up to 38. And I was 38 at the time I saw that. And I'm like,
confronting.
Oh my God, that's it. That's halfway. Like, what have I done in those 38 years? And I know I've done a lot, but I'm just like, I've only got that much left. It's like, that's gone so fast. How quick is that going to go? And I'm like, I don't want to spend the next 20 boxes, 30 boxes, however many it is, in this mindset. And I want to just go and break it.
Yeah.
It was very much time.
Yeah. And that whole no regrets policy, being able to look back and be like, okay, had you traveled like significantly before the career break, or why was travel such a big thing?
I just love it. I love going to new places and experiencing different cultures and different foods and seeing the way people live and understanding that and just opening your eyes to such a different way of life than just what we've got in Australia. But don't get me wrong, I now have been doing this for 9-10 months, however long it's been. I appreciate Australia, I think, a lot more than what I did living there. Like going to a lot of these countries where work is, Japan at the moment, I'm in Japan, and like work is such a core part of everyday life. And you see people at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night rolling out of the offices in suits. And I'm like, I'm so lucky to live where I live and have a really good work-life balance culture in the country. But yeah, travel's always been so important to me.
You're doing it with your partner. Were they on board from day one when you went home and you said...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. Okay, so that makes it easier.
Yeah. As soon as I went home and I said to him, I'm like, should we do this? He's like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Can we call the real estate agent now? Can we call Martha now and make it happen? I'm like, let's just sleep on it and decide tomorrow. But that's where I'm at right now.
I love it. That's hilarious. It reminds me of, I had an absolute tipping point in the UK. I got stuck on the M25, which is the huge motorway around London, in the snow for about, I think it was 11 hours. And I was just like, I'm done with this. There's got to be more to life than this. And I finally managed to get home about 4 a.m, I think. And I went into the local office the next day because I used to travel around for work. And there was a job on the intranet in Sydney. And I thought, oh my God, it's obviously the universe is telling me, you know, I don't need to be in this snow. I can move to Sydney. And so I went home and I said to my husband, right, there's this job. Like, what do you think? And he walked off upstairs. And I said, what are you doing? He went, I'm off to pack. So it sounds like your partner is as on board.
Yeah.
You mentioned obviously the travel piece. So just talk us through how you planned where to go and what that journey was like, and actually what the travels looked like for 9-10 months.
Yeah. So we only planned the first bit. So we went to Bali for 1 month as a bit of a stop and reset. And that, in retrospect, was probably not a good idea. I wasn't ready to do that yet mentally. So I was really struggling for that month. I didn't have anything to do. I had nothing to distract my brain. I was in a real state when I left work, and just the downtime actually was probably the worst thing to do. And I had a lot of anxiety attacks and a lot of panic attacks, and I was just really in a bad spot. Then we went to Japan for 3 months. And that was sort of the main thing that was planned. We knew that we were going to start at the top and work our way all the way down south. So we started in a town called Wakkanai, which is the very northernmost town in Japan, and slowly made our way all the way down to Okinawa and this island called Tokushiki. That was planned, the route, but how long we were staying, how we were getting there, the hotels, none of that was planned. And we haven't planned anything since. It's just been, where do we feel like going? And we just went.
I love that.
We tried to stay in warm places, but we did spend 6 weeks in Europe because I wanted to go over and see my kids. So my kids live in the UK in Manchester. We went and saw them for my son's 13th birthday, and then we tagged on Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Norway, and Denmark. And then we came back to Asia. But now I know I'm going to Osaka in a few days, then I'm going to Taipei, and then I'm in the Philippines, and then it is Vietnam. So it's kind of planned, but that's it, just rough guidelines.
Yeah.
We don't like to put too much effort into the planning, because if we really like a spot, we're going to want to stay.
Yeah.
We're going to want to spend more time there.
I find it really interesting that month, in retrospect, you'd have done differently that first month. A lot of people that I talk to that dive straight in actually almost say, I wish I'd had time to deconstruct all of my head and thoughts and everything and just really chill into it. What would you have done differently in hindsight?
I probably would have staggered it, to be honest. I probably would have gone sort of into the travel bit to keep that kind of that mental pace going. You know, great, I've got to do this, I've got to organise that, because I'm the planner.
Yeah.
So I'll organise the flights and the hotels and where we're staying and the transfers and public transport and all that jazz. And then maybe you've done that for a few weeks and then stop for a week. And then
Yeah,
see how I
okay.
was, see where I was. Then kind of jump back into it and kind of do it staggered so I can work through things methodically. Whereas just going, I've got a month and I'm in Bali and there's nothing to do except for eat and go to the beach. Nothing, right? And
Nothing.
then Bali's chaotic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just chaotic. People are at you and dragging you into their shops and wanting you to buy this and buy that and buy that. And that was I
Too
got
much.
overwhelmed. I couldn't
Yeah.
go out. There were days where I couldn't leave the room. And it was just like, that was such a foreign feeling to me because I love being out. I love doing things. I love that kind of environment. But because that was all I had to think about and I was healing from where I was mentally before, I would have done it differently.
You mentioned there's been a lot of lessons along the way, I'm sure, and that's one of them. What are the other key lessons?
Look, for me, it's all around taking time to understand and taking time to process things. Like I just wanted to be better, like tomorrow. I just wanted to feel good, feel great, feel clear. Things take time. I'm a very impatient person. I just like to get stuff done. I don't like to waste time. I want to get where I need to go quickly. And that was the same for kind of working through where I was from a mental standpoint. I just wanted to be better. I didn't want to have to deal with anything, right? I just wanted to forget about it, move on. So taking time and being comfortable in the unknown. I'm a stickler for routine and getting up at a certain time and going for a walk or going for a swim or doing this or doing that. And this travel has taught me that you can't just do that all the time. Like you can't just be in that routine all the time. Like, being in a country where you don't speak the language, things are a little bit more difficult on how to communicate and get around and do things like that. So just take it as it comes, just relax. It's all going to be fine. So that for me was a really big lesson to be like, just slow it down. Don't be so impatient.
It's so true, isn't it? And I think that's what the travel piece with a loose plan but without an itinerary really does allow that almost sacred time for us to be in this almost liminal sort of space. And for listeners who may find themselves in a similar sort of headspace, what are the pieces of advice or things that have really helped you outside of just slowing down to really help on that healing journey?
I think taking the time to self-reflect was a big piece, to look back and go, right, so if I was to dissect certain interactions or certain feelings or whatever it may be, it's like, are you happy looking back at that and going, yes, I'm good with that, or no, I'm not good with that. So what would you do differently next time? I really like to have a strong self-awareness to go, who I am as a person, how I interact and how I act is really important to me. How I'm seen by people that I work with or work for or whatever it may be, I want to make sure that I'm coming across very self-aware. So there was some things in the workplace where I was there and where I acted in a certain way, and I look back and go, that's not me. Why was I doing that? It's almost like you're a product of the environment that you're in, and you're just like, that's not me. What's going on there? So it's that self-reflection point to go look back and go, you know what? It's okay. You've learned from that, and we're not going to sort of go down that path again, and that's all right. It's taking the time, but taking the time that's right for you. Like I said, the month of just stopping wasn't good to me. That didn't work. And if you're a person on the weekends where your mind is constantly going 24/7 about whatever it is, it might be work, it might be kids, it might be family, whatever it is, the minute you take yourself out of that and you've got no other distraction, the chances are your mind's going to keep doing that. And then you're going to be kind of stuck in that limbo until you go, I need to break it. This is too much. And the other one is to lean on people around you. You know what? Partners, friends, family. Maybe if you don't have that support around you, someone who is a professional, a therapist, a counselor, whoever it may be, right? Making sure you've got someone to talk to and you can talk through those thoughts and feelings, whatever it may be, to start that journey. But you also need to be ready to do that, and not everyone is, and that's okay. Finding the space and time and right environment to do so.
Yeah. And when you talk about leaning on people, it's interesting. I was at the Wellness at Work Summit in Sydney in November, and there was a keynote on having your team and picking the right team for you. And in that, I don't mean at work, but I mean they had an example of an athlete, and the athlete's team involves family, supporters, friends, coaches, physical and mental, and all of it. And I thought, yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And so it's just being, as you say, really mindful around who's on your team, leaning on people or methods of support or different things that really ensure that the whole of you is looked after and goes through that healing journey. When you decided to take your break, was there a period of time? Did you say, right, we're taking a year, or like what was the sort of time zones around it and timelines?
Yeah, so we thought that we'd call that our gap year.
Okay.
So we'll take a year off, we'll go do what we want to do, and then we'll come back and we'll start again, whatever it may be. But it's very much kind of that 12-month time frame to be like, what can we do? Worked out our budgets. Like, yeah, we can do one. We could probably do two if we're really, really tight and stingy, but one would be comfortable. That would leave us with enough to come back and buy another house and get a job and yada, 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 do all that jazz. And now coming up to the end of the year, like it's gone so fast. It's like, do we want to do another year? What do I want to do? Like, you know.
So where are you at?
We're kind of at that. Well, that's it. We're at that point now where we're having to think about like, what are we going to do? We've got to be back in Australia in June for my sister's wedding. She's getting married in June. So we've got to be there for then. And we'll probably decide then, to be honest. Like we'll go home, we'll spend a few weeks there and just decide, are we going to stay or are we going to go again? So
definitely still away till June. Have you sort of come to that conclusion?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. And what about work? Talk us through what your work was to you prior to the break and, you know, now what it means to you and where it sort of features.
So work for me before the break was I've been thinking about this recently, actually. It was really important. And I feel that I attached a lot of my worth to the role that I was doing, the value that I was bringing, the team that I was leading, you know, a feeling of importance almost, of going like, I'm important, you know, like I'm important in the business. I'm important to these people. People rely on me. And I came to the conclusion that I put more weight on that than anything else. I put more weight on that than, oh, you know what, I'm not feeling great today, but I'll still go in because I've got to do this. Or, oh, I'm not well today from a mental health perspective, but I'll push through and I'll still go in and I'll do it because it was so important. And I felt that I had to, otherwise I was letting people down. People relied on me and I really liked that. And then recently I was reached out to by a recruiter for a job. And this process was a little bit of an aha moment for me. I'm really clear with what I want to do moving forward. And this job really aligned to that. I went through the process. I did everything. I didn't end up getting it at the last step. So I went through a few rounds of interview, personality tests, reference checks, all that. And I didn't get the role. But there was a moment where I looked at what was being asked of me and I dropped what I was doing. I was sent material to look over, to go into the second stage interview, to give my little bit of what would you do if you were in the role? Mm-hmm. I put so much time and energy into that at the drop of a hat for a prospect, right? I might get this job for people that I don't know and don't know from a bar of soap, really. I put so much effort into it. And I'm just like, if I put that much effort that quickly into me, my personal growth or if I want to start a business, why aren't I doing that? And it was a real big aha moment to be like, I've put so much weight on something for so long that I need to start to shift that to put that weight and that focus back on me. I've got a lot of experience. I've done a lot of roles over my time. I can go and do something on my own fruition if I put that time and effort into it.
And that aha moment, what do you think is stopping you doing that?
Ooh, judgment.
Of others?
Yeah, of others. Like putting myself out there, I'm worried what other people are going to think, right?
Because it's scary.
It's scary. As you go through your career, you meet a lot of people, right? Some early in your career, right? And maybe you weren't a great leader or great at your job at that point because you're still learning. Up until the end of not end of your career, up until a certain point in your career, you've met so many people, you've done so many things, right? And then because probably where I was mentally, maybe I wasn't my best at the very last few months of that job either. So it's like, are people going to look at me and go, if you're saying that you're good at leading and management and things like that, and now you're going to go and coach people how to do that, but I don't think you're great at it. So I'm really, really self-conscious about that. So that's what's holding me back at the moment.
But what an amazing aha moment to have. Because once you've had that, right, you can almost acknowledge it, hold it, and then work on it.
Yeah, correct. And that came, I think that was the 2 weeks ago, where I'm just like, okay, cool. This is where my mind goes straight away to be like, this is really important and I need to do this. What you could be doing.
And I'm doing it for everybody else at the moment.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
And you said right at the beginning around we'd look and think, oh, okay, do we make money on the road, or how does it look whilst it's been on the road? How has that worked out? Like, have you worked whilst you've been away? Like, what's your partner done?
Yeah. So we haven't worked at all. We've talked about what do we want to do? Do we want to do this kind of digital nomad lifestyle forever? I've just started doing some things recently. So I've got a client. What I love doing is coaching and mentoring. I love doing that. When I look back at the roles that I've done, what have I enjoyed the most? I've enjoyed coaching, mentoring, or kind of project work and, brand new shiny things. I've really enjoyed that. So I want to do that. That's kind of what I want to do. So we haven't done anything up until probably a month ago. And a month ago, we've just started seriously talking about if we did want to keep this going, what would we do?
What would it look like?
Yeah, what would it look like? So I'm enjoying doing this leadership coaching and mentoring, things like that. Like I said, I've got a client, maybe a second coming along soon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to put some energy into that because we haven't done it. We talked about it, but we've still got time. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, till June by the sounds of it, until you need to make a decision. Love it.
That's right.
So we've talked about sense of identity and work and everything like that, and a couple of challenges. But thinking back, either kind of the planning of the break, leaving, or actually being on the break, what have been the key challenges that you've had to really navigate?
Yeah. So I think at the start of the break, when the house sold up until when we left, like that was really tumultuous. Number one is you've still got your day-to-day work. So you go to work, you do all that, you do the 9 to 5. We had a holiday plan. So we actually had a holiday plan to the UK in amongst all of that. So again, to go over and see the kids. So over to see them, bit of time in Asia on the way back. Whilst we were away is when the house actually settled at that point. So then coming back and then going back to work and resigning straight away. And then that whole, I suppose, time frame from when you resign to when you leave is, it's very, up in the air. What are you doing kind of thing? And then it was just trying to navigate the logistics of ending the lease in our apartment in New South Wales and moving all the furniture, and from a financial perspective, from a phone number perspective, because I'm not going to pay for roaming every single day. So it's like, how do phones work overseas, and dealing with your banks and like credit cards and how that all works on the road, and making sure you can still get. The biggest thing was, how do I get my security PIN? When you pay for things online and they send you through to that one-time password screen, how do I get that? And that became, how do I manage that overseas? And the bank couldn't support if you don't have an active phone number. It was just a whole big drama there. And then actually when you leave and when you get to that first destination, it's just like, well, what do we do? What are we supposed to do all day? Like, how do you feel? How do you feel that 8 hours or 10 hours a day you're previously working? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, and I think that's supposed to be is key, isn't it?
Correct.
Because we all have these expectations that either we put on ourselves or others put on us, or that we've just lived through, right? The blueprint of life. This is what you're supposed to do. And then it's like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
What do we do?
That's it. What do we do, right? And then it's just like, oh, do we just go out and explore? Do we go and eat all day? Do we go and like do tourist stuff? But no, like you don't. And what we've learned over that time is whenever we're in a new destination, we're like, great, we're going to go and see the sights for a day or two. And then we're just going to live. Like we're going to sleep. We're going to go for a walk. We're going to go for a run. We're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to watch Netflix for a bit. We're going to do some mental exercises. We're going to do some reading. We're going to listen to some music. We're going to do some research. My partner is very creative. So he's actually out at the moment taking photos of the cherry blossoms, which have just started to bloom here in Fukuoka.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
He's very artistic. So galleries and museums and things like that become a big part of the agenda. And it's like, how do you feel the day? It's like, we've figured that out. We know what to do now.
Yeah. It doesn't take long. Certainly for us, it doesn't take long to actually go, where do the days go? Like, it's actually scary.
Oh, 100%. Before you know it, that's it. Before you know it, it's dinner time. It's 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, and you're like, what have we actually done today?
Sun setting, and you're like, oh, what?
Yeah. It's so true. But it's amazing how quick you can fill a day with not much.
Yeah, it is. What's been the one biggest surprise of the whole journey for you?
It's the same everywhere you go. And I'll put that with a caveat, right? Because you know what? Everywhere you go, everyone's getting up in the morning, they're going to work, they're living their life, they're on the train, they're on the buses, they're coming home, they're going to the grocery store, they're taking their kids to school. It's the same everywhere. Every country you go to, it's the same. The scenery is different, the climate's different, the people are different, but it's the same fundamental rules of our society of what we're supposed to do, right? Everyone's doing the same thing. And we're just a visitor in these locations where people are doing it. And when we're home, we're part of that. And we came to that conclusion a couple of months ago to be like, it's the same everywhere you go. Everyone's just in their own little bubble in their world doing it, right? And we're just here for a time, you know, maybe we're an obstruction on the sidewalk, maybe we're an annoyance on the subway, maybe we're a roadblock with our suitcases trying to walk up 25 flights of stairs in Korea.
Yeah.
You don't know, right? Like we're just bystanders in everyone else's world. And it's the same from Australia to Norway to South Korea to Manila in the Philippines. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I don't know if that is like a depressing thought or not, but it's like that's a realization we've had to be like, it's the same.
I don't know. I think there's some kind of comfort in that for me, in the fact that actually we are all similar and the same. And yes, it's done differently. If I think about one of the resounding memories I think that I will take away from Vietnam was our first apartment in Ho Chi Minh was down like a side street, but on the main road was opposite a school. And we very kind of randomly must have come home at school pickup time. It was chaos. Like utter, I reckon there was about, no word of a lie, 500 scooters. All picking kids up. So, you know, some had 2 on the scooter, some had 3 on the scooter, you know, mums, dads, carers, whatever, all picking up. Absolute pandemonium. And my husband turned to me and went, God, a bit different to kiss and drop at, you know, in Seaforth, isn't it? Like, it is, but essentially it's the same. They're picking their kids up from the school.
It's the same.
Is there one key story or, you know, memory that stands out from the last 10 months?
Yeah. So when we were in Japan the first time, so we did 3 months in the summer of Japan. If anyone's been to Japan in the summer, you will know that the heat is just next level. And it's a busy country. There are people everywhere and things are just hot. It is hot, it is humid. And we got probably halfway through our 3 months. It was about a month and a half in. And I can't even remember what city we were in, to be honest, but we were somewhere around probably the Osaka area, Kyoto maybe. And I'm like, I'm done. I need to leave. I cannot keep doing this travel. It's too much. It was hot. I was sweaty. There were people everywhere. I was getting to the point where I'm just like, I'm over the food of Japan. And that is almost like, you can't say that because the food's incredible, right? I love the food. That's the only reason we came back to Japan this time, because of the food. But I'm like, I can't. We need to leave. We need to go. But we stayed. And I'm glad we stayed, because if we didn't stay, we wouldn't have then done Taiwan, which was an amazing country. We then would have gone to the Philippines in the wrong time and copped a typhoon. Everything would have been wrong after that. So we pushed through, and I know it sounds funny, we pushed through traveling. You know, it was really tough, guys. It was really hard. But that was such a moment to be like, if I'm going to quit now and give up, right? And that was a really kind of personal growth moment for me, because if something gets too hard, sometimes I've got this thing to be like, it's too hard, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just not going to deal with it. And that was also a self-reflection moment to be like, okay, just stop doing that, right? Stop doing it. It's not a good trait to have. And it's a weird connect from travel to life, but that's how I felt in that moment. It's like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go. And I'm glad we stayed. Go with it.
Yeah. And there's 2 things there, isn't there? There's almost that sliding door moment of, if you'd have changed, then actually things wouldn't have panned out how they did. And then also that, you know, being lucky enough to live in Australia and everything's so easy.
Yeah,
you know, everything's on demand, isn't it? Everything's easy. If it gets too hard, there's always an alternative. Yeah, and actually pushing on through, the beauty that comes out of that can be incredible. Has there been any things that you were myths or that people have assumed that you've busted or
Yeah, I think it's just that it's too hard to do it. It's like, I'm not in the right time. It's not the right time right now. I'm not in the right spot right now, or I don't have the funds, or I can't do that, or, it's all the excuses, right? That why you can't do it. And you know what? There's never going to be a perfect time in your career to do it. There's never going to be a perfect time from a financial perspective to do it, because it costs money, right? Yes, you will spend a lot of money doing a travel or a career break or whatever it may be, right? And you are going to walk out on a career that maybe in 6 months or 12 months you might have received a promotion or higher salary or whatever it may be, right? And that might make you happy for a few months, maybe a year. But I think looking back, I know when I'm 65, 70, 80, however old I get to, right, I look back and I'll be like, I'm so glad I did it, because I've learned things myself. I've learned, about the world. I've learned about myself in work, myself out of work. I've learned all that stuff. So I think it's about cutting through the excuses a little bit around it's not the right time or I can't do it because of, and going, you know what, I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, and it's that full circle moment on that no regrets policy.
Yeah, that's it. If I stayed at work, fine, whatever, I would have stayed at work. Would I have regretted not going? Absolutely. Me quitting work, right? And then in that first month, did I regret quitting work? Absolutely. But do I look back now and go, I only regretted it because it was a known, it was a familiar hell, as as the phraseology goes, right? We always find comfort in familiar hell because we know what we're doing, right? You're uncomfortable when you're in unfamiliar spaces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of the people that I work with have this whole decision kind of paralysis around not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford it, or all of the excuses, and they swing like a pendulum of, one day it's like, yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I'm backing myself. Yes, I'm doing it. And the next day it's like, oh my God, no, I can't. No,
Yeah.
because of this, and this. And it's so true. I think it's around what are you going to gain from doing it, but also what are you not going to gain, if you don't do it. The last thing I always ask guests is their top 3 tips to anybody who is thinking about or, about to embark on a career break. So what would your top 3 tips be for the audience, Kyle?
Top 3 tips are work out a budget and then add about 20%. Because things will be more expensive than you think. You'd be like, yeah, I could stay in the $25 a night accommodation for a month. That's fine. And then the reality hits where you've got to share a bathroom every day and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. Long term, we have certain things that we're comfortable with and certain things that we're not comfortable with. So work it out on your comfort level. If you're happy staying in a $25 a night accommodation, amazing. I'm in a $25 a night accommodation at the moment. I've got to share a bathroom and a toilet, which is fine because it's only for 4 days. And then we go to a nice place in Osaka and it's got everything we need plus a onsen and it's going to be lovely. So add 20% to your budget. Whenever you think of a reason why you can't do it, think of a couple where you can do it. So do a bit of a pros and cons list and go, I can't do it because of X, but I can do it because of X, Y, Z. And how I would get around the reason why I can't do it is this. And then really take the time. There's always a way around everything. And people that are thinking of taking a sabbatical, guess what? Most of the time we're in senior roles, we're in senior positions, right? We're in senior roles and positions because we can figure out we can figure out solutions to problems. So we can do it. We just need to give ourselves the brain power to do it. And number 3 is, I'll go back to what I was talking about in Bali. Be aware of where you are from a mental state. Again, if we're thinking about taking a career break, maybe we're burnt out. If we're going to stop straight away, how is our brain going to react to that? So have a real honest think about and a real honest talk to yourself around, if I stop right now, how am I going to feel? Or if I jump straight into travel, how am I going to feel? Figure out what works for you.
And what do I really need? What do I need for me right now? Yeah.
Correct.
I love those. They're absolutely brilliant top tips. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. It's been wonderful to witness. Thank you so much, Kyle.
No, thank you so much. I've enjoyed doing it.
And if people want to get in touch with you or find your new potential business that's blossoming behind the scenes, how best do people get in touch?
So it will be on LinkedIn. So I've set the page up. It's ready to go. I just have to launch it. I've got the website ready to go. I just have to launch it. The business name is registered and everything's ready to go.
Brilliant. Wonderful. And I will pop the LinkedIn
link in the show notes.
Amazing.
You take care and safe travels.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Kyle. Bye.
I wish I could somehow steal you away from how you feel. Appreciate your situation. Let's try to keep this real. And it's like she said, we're all affected, yeah. And it's like he said.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate each and every one of you being here. A massive thank you to Carl for sharing his journey from leading corporate teams to taking a career break to launching the Frontline Leader. His story is a great reminder that if you didn't take that gap year after college, it's definitely not too late. If today's episode resonated with you and you'd like to connect with Kyle, you can find him on LinkedIn and through the Frontline Leader, and I'll link everything in the show notes. A special thank you as always to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my incredible, patient and talented producer. And a big shout out to the amazing Joanna Cook, whose soulful vocals we're lucky enough to feature throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could like and rate the show, and if you really want to make my day, leave a positive comment too. If you know someone who would love this conversation, then also please send it their way. Your support means the world and helps get these stories out to more people who really need to hear them. If you've got a sabbatical story to share, or maybe you know somebody whose journey would inspire others, then do let me know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories Podcast on Instagram or message me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is just waiting to be written.
Taking matters into your own head, you won't believe that you're making